Hey there, folks. Time for some comic reviews. I know they're late. I wanted to try and get them up Sunday or at least Monday, but shit happened, you know. So let's take a look at the comics I got this week, last week. It's already Wednesday, God. Not a whole lot. I only got 4 books this week, but at least I'll be able to talk about them in a little bit more detail. First up is Booster Gold, number 20. And this is done by David Giffen and Pat Alif, with Jurgens is in there too. Now, it's interesting because Alif's work, Kevin Giffen is doing guest writing and Pat Alif is doing guest pencils, and Dan Jurgens is credited even though he didn't draw it. Maybe he inked it, I don't know. Weird. I usually don't like Pat Alif's work all that well, but it's pretty clean on this, and his proportions aren't all over the place like they usually are, so I was impressed with that. Kind of an interesting cover there. You got the whole communist symbol there with Booster Gold firing a machine gun. Basically, Booster is bored while his boss is fixing the time sphere, so he goes back to the 50s. I guess he wants to act like the Fonz. Ayy. That's actually pretty funny. So he goes back to the 50s and he wants to go to Vegas, but instead he gets caught up in a sort of early version of the Suicide Squad run by these guys that are similar to the CIA and fighting some communists. The actual plot part of it isn't that interesting. It's the everything leading up to it and then the end part where he's, reflecting on everything that happened. And then at the end, these 2 girls that look like Betty and Veronica say that he's a jerk. Because he went into the 50s diner and banged on the jukebox and went, "Ayy!" One thing that's interesting is, look at this, Connor Kent's coming back. I don't know, is it too soon? Tell me what you guys think. Anyway, I enjoyed this issue. I was a little worried about Booster Gold and its direction that it was going to take after Jeff Johns left it. I mainly picked up this series because Jeff Johns was writing it. He's my favorite comic book writer. And after he left, it got a little convoluted and some of the fun dropped off, but I think the book is starting to bounce back, finally, so that's good. I'll recommend that. Next up, we have Action Comics, number 877, and get you some credits for this one. This is written by Greg Rucka and penciled by Sidney Tellez, who did a pretty decent job. This is continuing the story of Flamebird and Nightwing, and we know that Nightwing is a aged version of Christopher Kent, who was really General Zod's son. And it kind of connects the things that are going on in Superman World of New Krypton, because we know Superman World of New Krypton, Superman's trying to keep an eye on General Zod, and General Zod is trying to convince him that everything's okay. But in this issue, we learn that he has spies all over Earth. And one interesting reveal at the end, which I really don't want to spoil, so that's worth checking out. And also there's these 2 Kryptonians that just start killing people. Kind of reminded me of like a Kryptonian Bonnie and Clyde. Kind of weird. I enjoyed this issue. It wasn't really anything special, but it was definitely a competent issue. Next we have Deadpool Suicide Kings, number 2 of 5. And this is an interesting one. This one's written by Mike Benson, and Carlo Barberi writes it. Now, as we learned in the last issue, Deadpool has been framed for blowing up an apartment building, and now the Punisher is after him. And most of the issue deals with that, the Punisher versus Deadpool. And you get to see Cowgirl for the first time in a while, which is pretty cool if you were a fan of the old Deadpool series. And this is something interesting. When Deadpool is hallucinating, and he's got a bad injury, and he's with Cowgirl. He hallucinates her as B. Arthur. Anybody who follows the character knows that Deadpool has always had a crush on B. Arthur. It's an angel of God, my glorious B. Arthur. You're delirious. I kind of wondered when B. Arthur died if the writers of Deadpool would address this somehow. They don't mention her as being dead, but it does call her an angel, so it's kind of interesting. At the end of it, Daredevil shows up, which is kind of cool, and it looks like he's showing up actually to help Deadpool, probably because he knows that Deadpool is innocent and that the Punisher shouldn't be killing him. Of course, Deadpool doesn't think the Punisher should be killing anybody, but this is interesting because the last time Deadpool and Daredevil tangled was way back in Deadpool's first annual, the Deadpool Daredevil Annual 97, and that was really interesting. They didn't exactly part on the greatest terms, though. And lastly, we have Green Lantern Corps number 36. Big blurb says, Riot! You got this big blurb that says Riot, and Kyle Rayner and Guy Gardner on the cover. Definitely battling. You could see Sinestro Corps members, and you could see Red Lanterns. But then when you open the book, it's kind of a surprise because it doesn't pick up with the riot in the science cells, where the Red Lanterns are just going around killing people, and the Yellow Lanterns, the Sinestros, are trying to escape, and the Green Lanterns are trying to suppress it. It actually picks up the plot thread where Sinestro himself is on Kurigar, and he explains to Soranik Natu how he's her father. Now, it was kind of an obvious thing. I mean, she's the she's the only Korrigarian. Is that what you would say? She's the only person from Korrigar, so when they mentioned a couple of issues ago that Sinestro had a daughter, it was like, well, duh, of course it's going to be Soranik Natu. Unless his daughter turned out to be Kat Matui and that she was still alive, but as of yet, Kat Matui is still dead. They've hinted at bringing her back. Maybe she'll be a Black Lantern. I kind of think that the Black Lanterns are going to be a way for some characters like the Martian Manhunter to come back and Batman to come back. And they do show an ad for it somewhere in here where you could see the Earth 2 Superman as a Green Lantern. That's pretty cool. But anyway, I really enjoyed this issue. The action was intense. A lot of people don't realize that Green Lantern Corps is not just a spin-off or a second Green Lantern title. It actually has a completely different feel from the Corps title, no pun intended. The Corps Green Lantern title, Green Lantern, is a science fiction superhero epic, where it's basically a superhero that happens to be based in a science fiction world. While Green Lantern Corps, a lot of people don't read this, and I try to get people into it. It's more of a dark science fiction. It's very violent, it's very dark, and if you're into dark, violent science fiction, things like aliens and whatnot, I think that you would like Green Lantern Corps. There it is, the ad for Blackest Night, showing Kal-El, without the E in it, the Superman of Earth 2, as a Black Lantern. That is so cool. The end of this, it does look like Ion dies at the end, but I don't believe it for a second because he was in Legion of Three Worlds as the very last Green Lantern. So they'll probably get him out of it somehow. So this was definitely my favorite of the week. So only 4 books. I meant to pick up the Superman New Krypton Part 1 hardcover, but I forgot, so I'll probably pick that up on Saturday. So I'll see you guys hopefully sooner than a week from today with reviews of I would say next week's books, but it's actually this week's books because it's already Wednesday. So see you guys.